Good day, viewers. My name is Darlington Okoka, and I wish to welcome you to Delwit Electrical YouTube channel. Today, we shall be discussing on why your circuit breakers trip. As we know, circuit breakers are electric protection devices or safety protection devices that helps to protect your electrical circuit from damage as a result of overcurrent or short circuit. Its major function is to cause or interrupt a current flow so as not to damage your equipment or to cause, which might eventually lead to fire outbreak. In buildings today, you will definitely find circuit breakers in your distribution board. So when you open your distribution board, you will see various circuit breakers, and those circuit breakers are connected to various circuits. So when you have your 13 amp socket, you have your 15 amp socket, you have your TV socket, you have wherever sockets or wherever connecting points you have within your circuit, they are all connected to the distribution board. And in the distribution board, we have various circuit breakers that controls one or two of those appliances. So whenever there is a trip on any of those circuit breakers, you would know that one of the outlets would not work. So what causes this tripping? First and foremost, overload. So I'm talking about overload, so we're talking about short circuit, and we shall be talking about ground fault surges. So let's start with the overload. Overload is when there is an electrical demand which is higher than the circuit breaker that is being connected to such load. For example, let's look at these various circuit breakers here. Now, if you look at this circuit breaker now is rated 5 amps. This is rated 10 amps. While this is rated 100 amps. We have circuit breakers are rated 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 45, 50, 60, 63, 100 amps. So irrespective of the capacity of your circuit breaker, ensure that your load is not above the rating of the circuit breaker. Because if it's above it, it will lead to the tripping of that particular circuit breaker. So as it's advised that you have an electrical drawing. This electrical drawing will take cognizance of all these capacities, so you don't even need to stress yourself. It's because most people don't have an electrical drawing. You just call an electrician, come and wire my house, whatever rating of circuit breakers they like, they use for you. But with a standard electrical design, the required circuit breaker rating will be prescribed for you. The second aspect is short circuit. Now, this is very, very risky. Your circuit breaker, the first thing that happens is, if it's not an overload, it's usually a short circuit. And what is this short circuit? The short circuit is when there is a touch between the live and the neutral of a building. So if you have a live wire and a neutral touching each other, it will continue to trip that particular circuit. So when a circuit is tripping continuously, you start doing fault tracing. So that is why a descriptive labeling of your circuit breaker is very important. So when a particular circuit breaker trips off, you go to your distribution board and check the particular distribution board that trips. When you look at it, you should be able to trace where that supply is coming from. Then you go and start tracing to know if it's not an overload. If you notice that there's not an overload, that means the live and neutral is actually touching somewhere. So you have to go and remove it before that fault can be cleared. But if you don't have a descriptive labeling of your circuit breaker, it will be very hard for you to start tracing where the fault is. So that's why it's really advised that your distribution board should be labeled adequately to ease fault tracing in future. The third one we're going to talk about is also similar to short circuit, but that is the ground fault surges. Now, it's similar. For the short circuit, the live and neutral are connected together. But for the ground fault surges, you see that the earth is connected to the live. It can be anything, because your earth is looped in the entire building. Your earth is looped. So when the live is touching a metal clouding, is touching the surface of your distribution board, the earth wire is touching the live wire in your 13 amp socket, or wherever the live is touching any earthen part of your building, it will lead to this ground fault surge. So how do we eliminate this? We eliminate it by continuously tracing. And when you trace them to the right place, then you will see that this is the particular place where this fault has arisen from. So these are the three basic faults that can trip, but there are other little faults that can happen along the line. For example, loose or corroded connection. Now, if you look at this, circuit breaker, you will see that it's meant to be connected here. It's meant to be connected here. But because of the hurriness of some people, they might not clip it appropriately. So it will be loose. And when it's loose, it has every tendency to fall off. And when it falls off, it touches the body of the distribution board, and that will lead to a fault. So it's advisable that when this particular iron starts failing off, what you have to do is you change it. That's why it's not that expensive. You just change the circuit breaker to avoid loose connections that will lead to electrical fault. Okay, the next one that is very prominent is the arc fault. Now you see some circuit breakers or some connection ports sparking. This might be as a result of loose screws or inferior circuit breakers, inferior 13-arm socket or the rest. So once you notice such, that could lead to the tripping of a circuit breaker. So it's advised you immediately change the screw or you change the entire circuit breaker. And finally, older circuit breakers. Now, when a circuit breaker becomes old or you have used it over the years, it becomes too sensitive. So for every little thing, it trips. For every little thing, it trips. When you trace, you see that there is no fault. Just that the circuit breaker is just too sensitive. So in that case, you change your circuit breaker. So these are the little things that causes the tripping of a circuit breaker. You'll be using light, all of a sudden it goes off. You'll be in your house using your socket point, all of a sudden there is no power supply to your socket. So if you've experienced any of this, just know that it's either overcurrent, overloaded situation, earth ground fault, your circuit breakers are becoming old, arc fault, or loose connection. If you try all this troubleshooting, I'm very sure that dot tripping will definitely stop. So I believe that I've been able to educate you and teach you on the reasons why your circuit breaker trip. If you know you've enjoyed this, kindly share this video to your friends, share the link also, and click on the subscription icons so that you'll be able to get notified for our subsequent video. Thank you very much.